7 years into pretending to be an alpha, I married the most sought-after omega in all of New York's elite circles. Afraid he'd find something off, I handed him a prenuptial agreement right after the wedding ceremony and said with a straight face, "I'm sorry. I already have someone I love. I want to remain faithful to him." He paused for a moment, then nodded gently. "All right, I understand." It all worked out, until that day. My rut hit out of nowhere. My body was soaked in omega pheromones, thick and unmistakable. And of all people, he walked in. He stood there, expressionless, before stepping forward and gripping the back of my neck with calm precision. His voice was quiet, but it struck like a whip. "So, your beloved, does he enjoy being the other man?" I opened my mouth to explain, but froze. Because the scent coming off him wasn't omega at all. It was aggressive, dominant, pure elf. I blinked. But you've been pretending to be an omega too. Welcome to He History Channel. Subscribe to follow all our latest adventures. Story begins. The moment I stepped through the door, I heard Jack Watson's voice, gentle and soft, just like always. "You're back." I responded with a quiet, "Yeah." He walked over, his height nearly matching mine, and carefully took off my coat, draping it neatly over his arm. Then he smiled at me, warm and courteous. "Dinner's ready. Want to wash your hands first, darling?" Even though it wasn't the first time he'd called me that, I still hadn't gotten used to it. I hadn't gotten used to having a husband. And even less so to the way the house always glowed with warm lights whenever I came home late, worn out from work. I rubbed the tip of my nose awkwardly, feeling a little embarrassed. "There's no one else around. You don't have to call me that if you don't want to." It was all in the prenup, just play the role when we're in public. Jack's gaze darkened for a second before he quickly masked it with a calm smile. "Are you worried the person you like will misunderstand Thomas?" For some reason, when he said my name, it always sounded affectionate. I tugged at my earlobe, distracted, not quite hearing the rest of what he said. I mumbled, "Yeah." Jack paused, then nodded. "Got it." He smiled again and offered gently, "Let's eat." Today marked the 2750th day of me pretending to be an alpha, and the 15th day of being married to Jack Watson. 2 weeks ago, my father, Charles Marshall, under the manipulative whispers of his current husband, my stepmother Nancy Marshall, told me I had to marry into the Watson family. They claimed it was for a major business deal. The original match? Stanley Watson, a notorious playboy. It was obvious they were trying to screw me over. Nancy even put on a show of concern. "Oh, Thomas, would I ever hurt you? Look at Stanley, he's full of vitality. Just give him a child to continue the family line, and after that, you both go your separate ways. It's just a business marriage." Sure sounds nice on paper. But being a toy for someone like Stanley, who couldn't keep it in his pants, meant one wrong move and I'd be left in pieces. Not that I was scared, but who gave them the right to decide my life? So I feigned innocence. If it's such a great deal, why not have your daughter marry him? She's a beta like you, right? If you could carry a child, maybe she inherited that special trait too. Maybe she'll get lucky and make Stanley Watson pregnant. Nancy's expression twisted. "You?" I lifted my eyes lazily. "What?" She stormed off in tears to complain to my father. I gave him an earful too, flat out refusing the match. Besides, most of the Marshall family's shares were under my name, they couldn't do much. The standoff dragged on for days. Eventually, Charles gave in. He looked like he'd aged a decade overnight. "Didn't you want the West City project? Take it. Just do the marriage." I said, "I want the East Side lot too." Nancy lost it. "Thomas Marshall, you're going too far." I smiled. "Too far? Nancy, you haven't even mentioned what I stand to gain from marrying into the Watsons. They weren't wealthier than us, but they had power. And some things, money alone can't buy." Charles finally gave in. "Fine." That was when I smiled for real. "You're so generous, Father." After that, I stopped paying attention to the whole affair. To me, it was just another transaction. All I had to do was go through the motions and drop the prenup in front of the groom before we signed the papers. Sorry, I already have someone I love. I want to remain faithful to him. I didn't expect the groom to change. No longer Stanley Watson, but the Watson family's treasured youngest son, the Omega everyone in New York adored, the so-called moonlight everyone chased, Jack Watson. At first, I didn't think much of it. So they swapped the groom, typical upper-class bullshit. Who cared? What baffled me was why someone like Jack Watson would agree to marry me in the first place. But I figured it was mutual convenience. So, just like I planned, I told him that line before the wedding. I already have someone I love. He looked at me and said gently, "All right. I understand." I thought that was it. We'd stay out of each other's way. But Jack Watson, he lived up to his reputation. He played the role of my husband to absolute perfection. Whether it was in public or private, he made no missteps. He'd hold my arm with a shy smile, call me darling again and again like we were in love. If I were into Omega relationships, even I might have caved. Even at home, with no one watching, he'd sometimes slip up and call me darling, like it was second nature, only correcting himself after I gave him a look. And every time I came home, without fail, I'd hear, "You're back." Like he'd been waiting for me all day. At those moments, I couldn't help but feel a strange sense of domesticity. Like I was the breadwinner, coming home to a spouse who'd kept the lights on. What else could I say? He really was moonlight personified. Only half a month into marriage, and his presence already felt overwhelming. Jack Watson could cook really well. His dishes hit every note, flavor, aroma, presentation, like he knew exactly what my taste buds wanted. At first, I thought we'd hired a new chef. I even considered giving them a raise. So I casually mentioned it to the butler, who blinked and replied, "Sir, all meals were prepared by Mr. Marshall." And we both knew exactly who that was. I looked over at Jack instinctively. He sat quietly, posture proper, eyes down as he ate. His lashes cast delicate shadows, his nose bridge high and sculpted, his fingers long and elegant. Everything about him screamed, elite Omega, the kind everyone in New York worshipped. And somehow, he was my husband. The elegance of the moment was nearly perfect, until my gaze fell on the crooked bandage clinging awkwardly to Jack Watson's index finger. I hesitated before asking, "Your hand?" Jack seemed to just now remember the bandage. He glanced at it lightly, then looked back at me with a gentle smile. "Ah, I nicked it while cutting vegetables." I frowned. "Are you okay?" "It bled a little." "Nothing serious." "Oh, that's good then." I wasn't sure why, but despite being known for my silver tongue, I always ended up tongue-tied around Jack Watson. Like whatever I said never quite landed right. A beat of silence passed. I wanted to say something more, but my phone rang. It was Philip Ray, my assistant. Something had gone wrong at the office. I had to rush back. I grabbed my coat from the rack, already folded neatly by Jack, and headed for the door. "What happened?" he asked. "Something at work," I replied, not slowing down. "Wait." Jack's voice caught me mid-step. A moment later, he came out of the kitchen with a thermal container and pressed it into my hands. "You barely ate. I don't know how late you'll be. This is chicken soup. Drink some if you get the chance. It's not good to run on an empty stomach." It was the first time I'd ever heard Jack say that many words in one go. Since we got married, our conversations had been minimal, like a couple held together only by appearances. Which, well, wasn't far from the truth. My throat tightened slightly. I murmured, "Thanks." He reached out and adjusted the collar of my coat. "Be careful on the road." Even after I left, I could still feel his touch lingering at my collarbone. His scent stayed with me, faint and persistent, all the way to the office. I worked late into the night. By the time I returned, the house was dark. Jack must have gone to bed. I quietly slipped inside, carefully placed the now empty soup container on the table, making sure not to make a sound. When I turned around, I was startled. Jack was curled up on the couch, fast asleep. He looked different when he was sleeping. Eyes closed, his features were sharper, more guarded than when he was awake. The contrast was jarring. Without realizing it, I sat down and watched him for a while, lost in thought. Eventually, he stirred and opened his eyes. "You're back." I snapped to attention. "Yeah. Why are you sleeping here? You'll catch a cold." "I wanted to wait for you," he said softly. I assumed he was worried something had happened. So, as I had for the last 7 years, anytime someone expressed concern, I defaulted to my usual response. "I'm an alpha. I'll be fine." The moonlight streamed through the window, casting soft light across his lashes and brow. He didn't argue. "I know, Thomas. Go wash up." I nodded. "Right, okay." I had just started to stand when something occurred to me. "Wait," I called out. I dug through the cabinet and pulled out some alcohol and a fresh bandage. My tongue felt strangely dry. "Let me redo the bandage for you?" Jack blinked, then gave a small smile. "Okay." The old one was clumsily placed, bent at awkward angles. I peeled it back carefully, worried I might hurt him. Underneath, the cut wasn't deep, but the raw skin peeked through. I gently blew on it. "Does it hurt?" He held my gaze and, after a beat, shook his head. "No." I dabbed some alcohol on, then pressed on a new bandage, this one smooth, centered, precise. I hesitated. "We have chefs at home. If you enjoy cooking, you could let them prep the ingredients and you just do the fun part. No need to hurt yourself." Then quickly added, "Not that I don't appreciate your cooking. Honestly, it's so good I nearly lick the plate every time." Jack chuckled lightly. "Thomas, it's not cooking I like." I blinked. "Then what is it?" He didn't answer. Instead, he asked a completely unrelated question. "Now that we live together, won't your beloved get jealous?" I froze. "Huh." My brain scrambled. "You said it yourself, it's me who likes him. Not the other way around." Jack didn't hesitate. "Then he's a fool." His tone was so firm, so definite it made me laugh. "Is that so?" He nodded. "He doesn't deserve your affection." Ever since that night, something between us had shifted. The stiffness I always carried around him began to loosen. And I didn't know why. He, on the other hand, was like the model of a perfect husband. Attentive, selfless, and unwavering in his care for me. But didn't the prenup say I was already in love with someone? That person, of course, was fake. A convenient excuse. A lie. But Jack Watson didn't know that. Just like he didn't know I could never be the alpha husband he deserved. That thought made my chest tighten for reasons I couldn't explain. So what was all this now? A mess of blurred lines and tangled emotions. We went on like this, lukewarm, neither near nor far, for more than half a month. Until my heat hit. I'd booked a hotel in advance, trying to suppress the waves of pheromones wreaking havoc in my body. My assistant, Philip Ray, had just returned with the suppressants. He was an omega-2, one of the very few people who knew my secret. He administered the injection with practiced hands, though his voice carried a clear note of worry. "Thomas, the doctor said you've been using suppressants for too long. They won't keep working forever. Sooner or later, they'll stop responding." I was in the middle of texting Jack, "I've got to travel for work. I won't be home for a few days." His reply came quickly. "Got it." I added, "We'll talk after I'm back." That heat passed, barely, without incident. I reapplied the invisible suppression patch to the back of my neck. Still uneasy about lingering omega pheromones, I decided to return to the office first before going home. What I didn't expect was to run into Jack Watson right outside my company building. He had faint dark shadows beneath his eyes. His gaze moved slowly over my face, and for once, there was no smile. But when our eyes met, he still managed to curve his lips slightly, like always. "I spoke with your secretary," he said softly. "She said you didn't have any business trips scheduled." Then, with calm precision, he asked, "So, Thomas, did you go see the one you love?" I didn't know how to respond. Admit it? But the moment I looked into Jack's eyes, the word yes lodged in my throat. Deny it? Then how was I supposed to explain the faint trace of omega pheromones that might still be clinging to me? "Sorry, babe, turns out your dear husband is also an omega. Can't mark you even if I wanted to." That'd be hell. I couldn't even smile. Jack seemed to understand from my silence. He lowered his lashes. "All right, I understand. His voice was even, but something invisible and heavy dropped between us. He forced a smile, ever gracious. You just got back from your trip, right? You must have a lot to catch up on. Go ahead. Then he added almost gently, I'm sorry for disturbing you. After that day, I barely saw Jack Watson again, even under the same roof. The days of being greeted the moment I came home were gone. I began to realize he was angry. Because of that day. Because of the misunderstanding. I kept opening our chat, but the last message from Jack remained untouched for 4 days. Thomas, when do you think you'll be home? That was when I'd been trapped in the hotel, shaking under the weight of heat and suppressants. I hadn't answered. By the time I returned to work, I'd already run into Jack. And now, it was too late to reply. So I typed slowly, choosing my words carefully. Have you been busy lately? He replied simply, there's an exhibition coming up. I'd almost forgotten Jack Watson was a painter, a profession that suited his Omega temperament perfectly. He followed up with, why do you ask? I imagined his voice cold and distant, bit my lip and typed, no reason. Just wondering. You can get back to work. I tried again to speak to him in person. But Jack really was busy. Every time I came home, he was already resting in the master bedroom. Not waiting in the living room anymore. Maybe he just didn't want to see me. And really, could I blame him? I was the one who insisted on separate rooms when we got married. The one who volunteered to take the guest room out of some warped sense of chivalry. Now, I couldn't even knock on the master bedroom door. I stood outside, hesitating. The door was too well crafted, perfectly fitted, no cracks of light, no sound from inside. No way to tell if he was asleep. My hand hovered, lifted, lowered. Lifted again. In the end, worry about disturbing him won out. I sighed. Maybe next time. Why was I trying to explain myself in the first place? After yet another brief, polite exchange with Jack that left me feeling cold, I suddenly remembered. Wasn't this exactly what I wanted from the start? This was the plan. A distant, courteous partnership. No entanglements. I should have been relieved. Everything was back on track. So I let things slide. Our relationship grew even colder than it had been when we first signed the papers. My goal was simple. Keep things quiet until the Marshall and the Watson family's collaboration ended. Then we'd part ways, peacefully and cleanly. I didn't expect to run into Jack Watson, being cornered by someone. Roland Cooper. An alpha and a well-known playboy. At first, I didn't want to interfere. But their voices rose, sharp, tense. Even from several meters away, I could hear them. And I heard my name. You and Thomas Marshall are just a business arrangement. You probably don't even have a temporary mark between you. It's meaningless. Jack's voice was cold, a stark contrast to how he usually spoke to me. It has nothing to do with you. Roland snapped. Jack Watson, if it weren't for your face, you think I'd be chasing after you like this? Then came the sneer. Stanley Watson told me everything. You're just a bastard. Your stepmother only kept you because you're an Omega, and you were useful for marriage deals. If Stanley hadn't refused to marry into the Marshall family, you wouldn't even be here. He leaned in, venom dripping from every word. Tell me, if Thomas Marshall finds out you're not really one of the Watsons, just a leftover pawn, will he still want this marriage? Then, as if he was offering a gift, come on, Jack. Be smart. At least I want you, not your last name. I walked over, unable to listen any longer, cutting off Roland Cooper's trashy words with deliberate volume. Well, if it isn't Roland Cooper. I casually reached out, took Jack Watson's wrist, and pulled him gently behind me, shielding him with my body as I faced Roland with a sharp, insincere smile. What brings you here today, Roland? Bored of sniffing around nightclubs? Before he could respond, I feigned sudden realization. My bad. I forgot. Your father just brought home another son around your age, didn't he? That must explain why you've got so much free time now. Got replaced, huh? In simpler terms, Mr. Cooper had recently acknowledged an illegitimate son, older than Roland, and promptly brought him into the Cooper family business, pushing Roland out of the core executive team. Roland's jaw clenched. Thomas Marshall. I waved him off. I was wondering why the air's been so noisy lately. Turns out it's just a stray dog yapping. He inhaled sharply, forcing himself to breathe evenly. But his eyes flicked to Jack behind me, and a mean glint lit up. Right? And you're playing the doting husband now? Please. You can't even be bothered to give him a temporary mark. Putting on a show for sympathy? Oh wait, I get it. You're waiting till after the divorce so I can chase him openly. That enough of a favor for your ego, Thomas? My expression didn't even twitch. I don't need your favors. And this? This was just the one time I caught someone cornering Jack. God knows how many times he's had to endure this behind my back. Public opinion is a silent executioner. That thought made me angry, really angry. But more than that, it filled me with guilt. My right hand slid down, fingers slipping between his. With my left, I cradled the back of his head gently. Sorry, I whispered. Then I kissed him, softly, quickly, at the corner of his lips. Jack Watson froze. His eyes, which had been fixed on Roland with quiet fury, snapped to me instead. And never left. But I couldn't see his face. I was too busy keeping up the fight. I turned back to Roland with a smirk. Jack and I? We're doing great. Just trying to keep things spicy, you know? What? You thought we'd break up just because you're lurking around like a rat in heat? Please. Look in the mirror before you dream that big. It was crude, but true. After a few more barbs, Roland's face turned red with fury. Unable to outmatch my words, he spun around and stalked off. Only after his figure disappeared down the corridor did I turn back to Jack. My adrenaline started to settle, and with it, the realization of what I'd just done hit me full force. I cleared my throat awkwardly. Are you okay? Jack didn't say anything at first. He just lowered his head, gaze glued to our interlocked fingers, the corners of his mouth twitching into a smile he couldn't seem to suppress. I'm fine. That's good. He paused, then added softly, but he wasn't wrong. Fucking Roland Cooper. I instantly blurted out, don't listen to him. The marriage was my father's idea. No matter what anyone says, no matter where you come from, since we're married, I'm not divorcing you. Jack didn't respond. His eyes were lowered, expression unreadable. I thought maybe he was still shaken, still upset. I was about to offer comfort when he lifted one hand, brushing his thumb against the corner of his lips, the exact spot I'd kissed. He grinned and asked teasingly, Hubby, aren't you worried that the person you like will be jealous if you kiss me like that? Thanks to Roland Cooper, our relationship took another step forward. Even though I still hadn't offered any decent explanation, just a half-hearted excuse. About Sheen, sure. I was just young and stupid back then. Jack repeated the name with a thoughtful hum, then laughed it off, no longer pressing. That being said, I made sure Roland paid for it during our business dealings. I didn't hold back. And between me and Jack, things finally smoothed out. He started calling me more often, multiple times a day even. Not that I was keeping track. He'd quietly taken over all aspects of my daily life. Meals, clothes, reminders. Everything. Eventually, I moved out of the guest room and officially into the master bedroom. We were sharing a space now. It felt monumental. Pink-tinted daydreams clouded my head just thinking about it. Philip Ray caught the smile on my face and gave me a look of deep concern. Thomas, the contract. You still need to sign it. I coughed and forced a straight face. Just leave it here. But I wilted a little inside. I was still too busy. Even with everything going well, time with Jack was limited. I could only steal moments here and there. After wrapping the meeting, I messaged him, I miss you. Loudly crying face, loudly crying face. He replied instantly, I miss you too. Hugging face, hugging face. Revived by the power of electronic babe love, I rallied and returned to work. Finally, after more than half a month, I wrapped up both the East and West City projects. I was free. Finally. Overjoyed, I let myself go a little too hard at the office celebration party that night. Maybe more than a little. I was drunk. For 5 Philip Rays were waving their hands in front of my face. Thomas? You okay? Clinging to the bottle, I mumbled, "I'm not okay. Not at all. Where's my babe? My babe's so big, how could he disappear?" I don't know how long I rambled before someone took my hand. "Thomas." I blinked up, dazed. "Babes?" The voice repeated, laughing. "Babes? I want my babe." He pulled me into his arms. "I'm here, La. I came to take you home." And just like that, we entered our honeymoon phase. A full-on newlywed bliss. But something puzzled me. I still hadn't caught the scent of Jack's pheromones. I didn't want to bring it up. What if he was self-conscious about it? Maybe he thought they smelled bad. I didn't want to hurt him. Until one day I caught a faint scent on him. Chirp. Salty. Alpha. It hit me unexpectedly. I sniffed and squinted. "Babe, why do you smell like alpha pheromones?" Jack froze. "Do I?" "Yeah. Sea salt." I nodded. His expression was calm, too calm, but there was a flicker of tension in his eyes. He smiled awkwardly. Maybe it rubbed off at the gallery today. It was crowded. He stood up a little too quickly. "I'll go wash up." And he stayed in there for over half an hour. That's when it hit me. In the months we'd lived together, I'd gone through multiple heats. But I'd never seen Jack go through his. Worried, I stood outside the bathroom and asked, "Hey babe, when's your heat?" There was a pause. Then he replied, "Why the sudden interest?" Because I was scared. Scared I wouldn't be able to help if it hit him hard. But I didn't say that out loud. I just said, "Just curious." He opened the door. The salty scent was completely gone, just soft body wash now. The same one I used. Jack lowered his gaze and explained quietly, "I have pheromone dysregulation. My heats aren't regular." Then, more hesitantly, "And I may not be able to get pregnant." He looked up, cautious, waiting. "Would that bother you?" I stood at attention like a soldier. "Of course not." Honestly, I was a little relieved. I couldn't take it anymore. I stepped forward and cut through Roland Cooper's filthy rant with a deliberately loud voice. Well, if it isn't Roland Cooper." I reached out and gently tugged Jack Watson's wrist, pulling him behind me, shielding him. I faced Roland head-on, my smile all teeth and no warmth. "What brings you here, Roland? The spa full today." Before he could respond, I put on a look of sudden realization. "Oh, right, how could I forget? Your father just brought home a new son, didn't he? Same age as you two. Makes sense you'd have more time now, since there's someone else doing the heavy lifting at home." Translation: Mr. Cooper recently acknowledged a bastard son, older than Roland, and immediately brought him into the Cooper family's company, effectively kicking Roland out of the core management team. Roland's jaw clenched. "Thomas Marshall." I waved lazily. "Ah, no wonder my ears have been ringing. A dog won't stop barking." He forced a breath, clearly trying not to explode. But then his gaze flicked to Jack, and he smirked. "Please. You won't even give him a temporary mark. And now you're playing the possessive husband? What? I'm supposed to wait until you divorce him before I make my move. I'm being courteous, Thomas." My voice was flat. "I don't need your damn courtesy." And this was just one time I happened to witness. Who knew how often Jack had to endure this kind of bullshit behind my back? Public opinion was a blade. Clean, quiet, and deadly. That thought made my stomach knot with guilt and fury. I reached down and laced our fingers together. Then my other hand cupped the back of his head. My voice was quiet, apologetic. "I'm sorry." I leaned in and kissed the corner of his lips. Jack froze, stunned, his anger at Roland replaced by a kind of dazed focus. His eyes locked on me like he couldn't look away. I didn't see any of that. My back was to him. I was still busy verbally sparring. I turned back to Roland. "We're doing great, actually. Just trying to keep things exciting. You wouldn't understand, you need a personality for that. Want us to get divorced? Please. Look in the mirror before you start fantasizing." Wrong? A few more barbs and Roland finally lost the ability to argue. Face twisted with rage, he turned and stormed off. Once his silhouette vanished, I turned to Jack. The adrenaline finally faded, and reality caught up to me. Are you okay?" I asked a bit awkwardly. Jack looked down at our hands, still linked. His lips curved into a smile he couldn't hide. I'm fine. Good. He hesitated for a beat. Though, he wasn't entirely wrong. Damn Roland Cooper. I immediately said, don't listen to him. The marriage was my father's idea. No matter what they say, no matter who you are or where you came from, since we're married, I'm not going anywhere. Jack looked down, silent. I thought maybe he was still rattled from the encounter, so I opened my mouth to comfort him, only to watch him touch the corner of his mouth where I kissed him, thumb tracing the skin. He grinned. Hubby, if you kiss me like that, won't the person you like get jealous? Thanks to Roland Cooper's lovely performance, even though I didn't give a real explanation, I mumbled a half-assed excuse. Chinsure. I was just young and dumb back then. Jack repeated the name like he was testing it on his tongue, chuckled, and dropped the topic. But business was business. I made Roland Cooper's life hell in the following weeks. Professionally, of course. Meanwhile, things between me and Jack? Better than ever. Let's not talk about the daily phone calls. Just the fact that he'd quietly taken over my daily routines, meals, wardrobe, appointments. And, milestone unlocked, I officially moved into the master bedroom. We were sharing a bed now. Progress. I felt like the air around me was tinted pink. I couldn't stop smiling. Philip Ray glanced at me, expression unreadable. Thomas. Contract. Sign it. I blinked out of my daze, coughed, and tried to look serious. Put it there. But I slumped a little. There just wasn't enough time. Even now, time with Jack had to be stolen in fragments. Once the paperwork was done, I sent him a message, I miss you. Loudly crying face, loudly crying face. His reply came in seconds, I miss you too. Hugging face, hugging face. Fueled by the emotional dopamine, I managed to get through the rest of the day. Finally, after weeks, I wrapped the East and West City projects, which meant I could finally breathe again. I was so excited, I got carried away at the celebration party and drank a little too much. A lot too much. I saw 4 or 5 Philip Rays waving in front of me. Thomas? You okay? Clutching the bottle, I mumbled, I'm not okay. I want my babe. Where's my big beautiful babe gone? Eventually, someone took my hand. Thomas. I blinked. Babes. The voice laughed. Babes. I want my babe. He pulled me close, whispered at my ear, I'm here, hubby. I'm taking you home. Jack and I officially entered our honeymoon phase. But something bugged me. I still hadn't caught his pheromone scent. It started to bother me. I didn't want to ask, what if he thought his scent was unpleasant? Then one day, I smelled something unfamiliar on him. Chirp. Bright. Alpha. I sniffed, suspicious. Babe, why do you smell like alpha pheromones? He froze. Do I? I nodded. Yeah. Sea salt. He smiled awkwardly. The gallery was packed today. Must have rubbed off from someone else. Then he stood up, flustered. I'll go wash up. He didn't come out for 30 minutes. That's when it hit me. I'd gone into heat several times since we married. But Jack, never once. Worried, I stood outside the bathroom and asked, Hey, when's your heat? He paused. Then asked, Why are you suddenly asking? Because I'm scared I won't know how to help you when it happens. But I didn't say that. Just wondering, I replied. When he opened the door, the sea salt scent was gone, washed away. Now he just smelled like soft soap. Same brand I used. He lowered his eyes. I have pheromone dysregulation. My heats are irregular. Then added, more quietly, I may not be able to get pregnant. He looked up cautiously. Would that bother you? I straightened like a soldier. Of course not. Honestly, a part of me felt relieved. Because even if he could, I couldn't. So that's why everything had lined up too perfectly. Because someone had planned it that way. I wanted to leave. I tried to leave. But the heat, intentionally triggered early, had drained all the strength from my body. I was sluggish and hazy, every nerve dulled by the surge of omega pheromones. I barely registered someone walking into the room. A figure approached. I recoiled, shoving him weakly. Get lost. I was about to bark a warning when the door creaked open again. Someone else stepped in. Controlled. His hands settled on the back of my neck, fingers pressing firmly in a possessive hold. And that voice. Cool and slow, yet laced with fire. Darling, is your beloved trying to be someone's homewrecker? Jack Watson. Before I could process how or why he was here, my instincts kicked in. I turned to explain, but the scent that hit me froze me in place. It wasn't the usual soft fragrance I was used to from Jack. This was sharp, dominant, aggressively alpha. My brain, still muddled from heat, suddenly registered the impossibility. You're not an Omega? You've been faking it? After the red wine incident, Jack had gone to change clothes. That wasn't the only reason. Lately, his pheromones had started to get harder to control. Last time he'd held me, the salty sea breeze scent had slipped through the cracks. Almost gave him away. So he'd been more diligent than ever about applying suppression patches. But then I'd texted him out of nowhere, saying I had to leave early. Something didn't feel right. He texted back, no response. He called, no answer. The unease grew quickly. He was about to leave the venue when he spotted Philip Ray rushing down the hall. Roland Cooper was blocking the door. Philip Ray, barely containing his fury, snapped, "Roland Cooper, don't push it." Roland smirked, smug and self-satisfied. "I'm just helping your young master broaden his horizons. If he won't touch Jack Watson, then maybe it's time he tried another Omega. Don't worry, this little one's got a good face and a better attitude. Who knows, maybe he'll even fall in love." Roland Cooper. Philip tried to shove past. But the difference in strength between an Alpha and Omega was too much. Inside that room was Thomas Marshall. And another Omega. Jack arrived just in time to hear those words. Is it the one he loves? That unfamiliar peach scent wafted out the door. Roland beamed. Oh, sounds like it's starting. He didn't finish the sentence. Jack punched him square in the face. His voice, low and icy, cut through the air. Move. Philip didn't need further instruction. He kicked Roland out of the way, making sure the bastard wouldn't get back up anytime soon. Jack shoved the door open. The first thing he saw, Thomas curled under the blanket, back to the door, only his head and pale neck visible. The scent of green apple Omega pheromones thick in the air, unapologetically bold. He looked around. There was another Omega in the room. The guy looked stunned. His lips trembled. Jack almost laughed from sheer disbelief. He was furious. And it was nearly his susceptibility period. His pheromone control slipped. The salty sea air of his alpha scent poured out of him. But no matter how violently his emotions surged, his face remained calm. Gentle even. The perfect doting husband. He placed a hand on Thomas's nape and, expressionless, asked the question he already knew the answer to. The peach-scented Omega panicked, jabbed a suppressant into his own arm, and bolted. But the green apple stayed in the air. Jack frowned. Something wasn't adding up. He slowly lowered his gaze to the back of Thomas's neck. The source of the Omega pheromones was coming from there. From him. His supposed alpha husband. I didn't wake until 3 days later. And the moment I did, my whole body ached. Every joint, every muscle, every inch of me screamed. "Hubby, you're awake?" Jack was instantly beside me, leaning in like he wanted a kiss. That same voice, that same tone, that same sweet nickname. He'd used it over and over during those 3 days. Every time I whimpered, "No more," he'd whisper, "Just one more time please, darling." I slapped a hand to his face on instinct. "No more." Jack laughed softly, pulled my hand away, and said with innocent eyes, "I was just trying to wake you up." I blinked, stunned. It took a moment for everything to register. My sweet, adorable, soft-spoken Omega husband was a fucking alpha? Rage surged. I sat up and glared at him. "Why the hell are you an alpha?" Jack held my hand, playing with my fingers before bringing them to his lips for a kiss. His tone was aggrieved. "Shouldn't I be asking why you're an Omega?" Unbelievable. My face turned red. "Stop calling me, hubby." "Then what should I call you?" "Honey? Babe?" "Thomas." With each name, he kissed the corner of my lips again. One thing led to another. Afterwards, wrapped around me, Jack finally gave me the explanation. Darling, remember what Roland Cooper said that night? That name made my jaw tighten. God, how I hated that man. I swear I'll kill him next time. I frowned. And don't believe a word he said. I'll beat the crap out of him. No, make that 10 times. Jack Watson just smiled. I already punched him once. And besides, he wasn't entirely wrong. He said it so lightly, but it made me pause. I am technically an illegitimate child. My father tricked my mom into having me. She gave birth and raised me on her own. I never wanted to return to the Watson family. But when she found out she was terminally ill, she sent me back. He chuckled, but it didn't reach his eyes. My stepmother never intended to let another alpha compete with her son for the family inheritance. The only reason I wasn't discarded was because they believed I was a marriageable omega. It sounded painfully familiar. Only we were opposites. After my mom died, if I'd been an omega, there was no way I could have clawed the Marshall family's assets back from the board and from Charles Marshall's grip. So I had no choice but to pretend. Even the decision to marry wasn't mine. But all of that, it's behind us now. I murmured, looks like we were made for each other. Jack's smile softened. You're right, darling. Jack Watson's POV, extra. The first time I saw Thomas Marshall was at Stanley Watson's 8th birthday party. He was the center of attention, shining like the sun. Well, not exactly. I'd seen him make several kids cry that day, one after another, with his ruthless comebacks. He was more like a venomous son, brilliant, yes, but with fangs. Not that it had anything to do with me. I had other things to worry about. Like my mom, she'd lost a lot of weight lately. I needed to sneak some food home from the banquet. But someone always had to ruin it. Stanley blocked my path with a group of kids, grinning. The same mocking tone. Same sneering words. I was used to it. I lowered my head, ready to brush it off. Then someone stepped between us. What, don't you eat? Is that why you're mocking others? Or is it because you think your birthday food's dog food? Hey, Stanley, yeah, you? Where do you think you're running off to? It was Thomas Marshall. He sent them scattering with a few sharp lines, then turned to me awkwardly, tugging on his earlobe. You okay? I nodded. I thought that'd be the end of it. But not long after, he transferred into my school. Into the class next door. And before I knew it, I was watching him, year after year. From a scrawny little kid into a confident, radiant teen. He was always burning bright. Always moving forward. When I turned 16, I differentiated as an alpha. But I couldn't be one. I disguised myself as an omega just to survive in the Watson household. Once my stepmother confirmed my omega identity, she was pleased. Started raising me like a refined heiress, groomed for marriage. It wasn't a big deal. All the alphas before me, older siblings, had mysteriously disappeared after their presentations. Survival was enough. Then, at 18, Thomas differentiated too. As an alpha. He'd grown quieter. Steadier. Stanley said it was because his mother was dying, and his father had brought another woman into the house, along with her own alpha son. When Tingjian, one of the few people who dared speak openly, muttered, "Good thing Thomas presented as alpha. That woman's kid? Definitely not someone to mess with." But at least he wouldn't be bullied. I never dared to hope I'd end up with him. Just being able to watch from afar was enough. It was enough. Until the Wens arranged a marriage with the Marshall family. The rumors spread fast. Stanley threw a fit for days. No way am I marrying that sharp-tongued bastard Thomas Marshall. I refuse. His mother was torn, her favorite son on one side, a lucrative partnership on the other. So I stepped forward. I'll go. And I got what I wanted. I married him. But he told me he already loved someone else. It didn't matter. I was greedy enough already. This was enough. As long as he didn't keep coming closer. Did it mean he felt something for me? Probably not. He still went to meet that omega. Still lied to me, said he was on a business trip. I should have pulled away. But then he kissed me. He kissed me first. So I won't let go. No matter who tries to come between us. I won't let go. Maybe I should get surgery. If I did, maybe he'd like me more? Why else did his business trips keep getting longer? Thankfully I didn't. I held him close, like he was my entire world, pressing a kiss into his hair. He was still babbling cheerfully in my arms. Thomas mumbled, "Hey, what if we both got gender reassignment surgery?" He rambled, "The Marshall family's mine now. I've been planning to switch for years. Just didn't want to scare you off, but now we can do it together. Don't worry about the Watsons, I've got your back. Sound good?" Huh. His eyes sparkled so brightly I couldn't resist. I leaned down and kissed them, my voice hoarse. "You're amazing, darling. What a coincidence. You were pretending too. What a blessing. That I found you." The end.
Thanks for stopping by. Subscribe and hit the notification bell so you don't miss out on any new videos.